Good morning, everyone. My name is Sonia Romano from the WatchReport.eu, and you're watching A View from Brussels. I'm here today joined by Pasquale Tridico, member of the European Parliament, an economist, and former president of Italy's National Social Security Institute, the INPS. In the European Parliament, his work focuses on fiscal policy, taxation, and social justice. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
To start with, and looking at your own path, you grew up in Calabria just like I did, and you became an academic economist. Then you led Italy's social security system, and today you're shaping EU fiscal regulations from Brussels. Looking back, which one of those experiences most shaped your interest in the issues you work currently on as an MEP?
Well, thank you. I think my experience at the National Security Institute, INPS, has been, as I always say, overwhelming, has been the most important, the most beautiful, very interesting. It has been as well in a period when Italy and Europe in general were under COVID attack. This means actually to boost social policy, to make it more universal, in order to cope with poverty, loss of job, inequality, which was increasing so much during that time. So this has been a very challenging time for me. I always say that during this period, most of the people were doing smart working at home. I was doing basically home working, meaning that sometime I was going home to take a shower. We were even sleeping within the institute because actually there was a huge job to do. INPS usually spent 400 billion euros per year for social policy. That year we spent 110 billion euro more. So 510 billion euro for social policy, for employment, for social security, for pension. This is the biggest expenditure for social policy in Europe because actually it put together all layer of social policy that you have at national level, at a regional level, in one institute only. In Germany, for instance, you have several institutes doing that for Länder, and while in Italy we do have a model which is unique in a way. So then there are some advantage of economy of scale, but at the same time you have a huge work and a huge database of all Italians has to do with you. From children, when they are born, you have a kid assistance until pension, or even after, because in Italy you have so-called reversibility, so the pension given to survivor of the family. So this has been probably the most important experience in my life as well, which had to do with my academic experience being a professor of labor economics. This has a strong theoretical background on this job.
Okay, and building on that experience, as president of INPS, you dealt every day with the effects of inequalities from pensions to unemployment and social protection. Now in the European Parliament, you work further on fiscal rules, right? But do you see EU-level tax policy as a way not just to coordinate the member state, but actually to strengthen the national welfare system?
Yeah. This is a very important topic, actually. You know, in Europe we are famous for being welfare state oriented, meaning that all member states have the generous welfare state. But then we do not have common fiscal policy. We do not have tax policy. We do not have regulation which are important for managing economy, for coordinating economy. We do have a central bank, but then we do not have regulation of capital. We do not have a capital market union, saving union. And this makes our market weaker than other players in the world. Think about the United States. They have a federal budget of 30%. So when there is a crisis, actually, they can manage to cope the asymmetrical shock that occur in several states because they have a central budget. We in Europe we have only 1.5% of our GDP, which is a common budget, which is too weak and too little. we do not even have a room for make a exceptional policy, like for instance defense. Today we are increasing the defense expenditure at the cost of welfare expenditure, because we do not have a common budget for Europe which make possible investing, for instance, in defense, or investing to curb the crisis of the automotive sector, for instance.
Yeah.
So all these things convinced me that what we need today within Europe is, first of all, a common fiscal policy, together with a common budget,
Yeah.
which has to increase. If you do that, then within crisis, you make even better the functioning of the Eurozone. Today, within the Eurozone, you do have a asymmetrical crisis which cause unemployment in one country, like for instance Italy or Greece, and then surplus in Germany or in Netherlands, and then you cannot combine the two markets, the two nations. While if you have a fiscal policy, a common fiscal policy, a common capital tax as well, think about the way several countries do dumping with tax or corporate tax, attracting capital in one country rather than in another. And this causes unemployment in some countries and surplus in another. So there is a sort of, unloyal competition within the Europe, within such an Europe. So that's why my job in the committee is to improve the level of integration within capital, within fiscal policy, because this will improve the function of the European Union.
Okay, and at the same time, as you certainly know, tax policy is still very much in the hands of the member states,
Yeah.
right? But from your position as a chair of the tax subcommittee, where can the European Parliament really make a difference today?
I was mentioning at the end of the previous question, and the Parliament has to challenge the unloyal competition that we do have as far as capital market is concerned. So each member state today, what they do, they compete to attract more capital. They do it at the expense of other, lowering down capital tax, corporate tax. This is unfair and produce asymmetry within the Eurozone. So, and moreover, I always say, and I was saying as well this to my student, we are very careful to fix the interest rate through the central bank. Think about what Lagarde does every day, looking at the level of prices in order to fix the level of interest rate in order to make stability price. That's fine. However, capital, indirect cost of the capital, which is tax, indirect cost of capital are left completely in the hand of the member states, and they often do unloyal competition, as I said, in order to attract capital. This is biasing very much the common condition of capital market within Europe. So there is a huge room to improve the coordination as well within corporate tax in Europe.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so well, now turning to a more politically sensitive debates, you've often spoken in favor of an EU level tax on ultra high net worth individuals.
Yeah.
Why do you think this debate has become politically unavoidable right now, and why could 2026 be a turning point for tax fairness and sustainable public finances?
Yeah. Today it is unavoidable to speak about that because the level of inequality increases so much. I understand the point and the critiques that several member states, several people within member states say that a tax on wealth for ultra rich, for super rich, would cause flight of capital from one member to another. That's why we need a European ultra rich tax on wealth, because this would, within Europe, have a fair competition. And today there are individuals within the world, within Europe, who behave like they would be corporations themselves. Think about, for instance, leader of a big corporation in the service sector, digital sector, that they are individuals, but they behave like being a corporation themselves. They move capital from one country to another very easily. Of course, they do business with very high revenue and very small cost. They don't even have so many employees any longer. Workers within a digital company are very little in proportion to the bill that they produce. So today, actually, the structure of the economy, in particular with the digital service sector, changes so much that it's unavoidable to speak about how to do something in order to curb inequality, which is increasing so much. You know, recently the Oxfam report revealed that 12 people in the world own the wealth that is owned by 3.5 billion people in the world. So half of the wealth in the world is owned by 12 people. That's huge. That's even in the work, in the function of an economy. We always teach to our students that the demand is very important to support as well the supply. When the demand, the consumption is so fragmented because there are very few people who could have potentially a very huge demand, but actually there are only very few. So they cannot really carry out the production, the supply, because the wealth is focused on only very few people. While a more equal distribution of wealth would improve as well the level of production. This is a fundamental rule within the economy. So inequality is not only a matter of social justice, philosophical approach, or if you want, moral issue. It is as well an economic issue. A more equal society is driven by economic growth because the demand is supporting the supply. So we need to understand that. Today it is unavoidable to think about that, and I think that the best place to organize such a tax is within Europe, because within Europe you don't have the counter-argument of flying capital.
Okay, as you mentioned at the beginning, you said that critics are warning that deeper EU tax coordination could lead to capital flight or to hurt competitiveness, right? But from what you actually see in the work of the tax subcommittee, how much of this is actually really backed by solid evidence and how much is just political resistance?
Well, the argument that capital can fly from one member to another, it is quite true, meaning that there is this risk. Yeah, there is such a risk. That's why, if you think to implement such a rule within the European Union, you would very much destroy this argument, at least within the European Union. Now, you may say that from Europe, this capital can fly wherever, to China or States or Emirates. That's fine, but within Europe, we are the biggest market, developed market in the world. 450 million consumer citizen is within a society which is so developed like ours, within Europe, is the biggest in the world. So I would see that there are costs in leaving Europe for capital. And I always say that if rich are rich because they are good and talented, do they really need to leave Europe to stay richer? If they do like that, then it means that they did not become rich because they are talented, but because of other factor probably.
Yeah, probably. Well, a related issue is also digital taxation.
Yeah.
While you've often supported an EU digital tax, pointing out that big tech generates a huge value in Europe while paying little tax, on the other side, EU institutions are saying that there should be a global solution, maybe through the G20. Now, taking all of this into consideration, what role should the European Union play?
Yeah, within Europe, at least as far as before Trump administration, before Trump came into power, we have done quite good progress in the direction of implementing a so-called global minimum taxation at 15%, and then to discuss about digital tax services. We have signed within Europe the so-called Pillar 2 for the global minimum taxation and the Pillar 1 for the digital taxation. Trump withdrew from this agreement, in particular from Pillar 2, and we were discussing actually the 5th of January, a new agreement was proposed, which was more accommodating the requests of Trump administration. And then we have a global minimum taxation at 15%, which remain within Europe, Another one which is called the side-by-side approach within states at 14%. Anyway, I think that, because of multinationals so volatile, we need a global approach, a European and global approach at this matter. And we have done some progress in that. We didn't do any progress as far as digital taxation is concerned.
Okay.
And we need to understand that if we want, as we want, lower down taxation on workers and firms, which are traditional firms, manufacture, firms who work in a mature sector, we need to increase something somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And today, the sector which are growing are the digital sector, which are proportionally taxed very little. I just give you an example. Think about, an industry which works like the cleaning industry in this building. Okay. You notice people here, they get about 40,000 euro per year. On that, you pay costs like tax, income tax, firms pay labor costs. Out of 40,000 euro, they get a net of 20,000 euro per year. They are average worker, even poor worker. At the same time, you have the digital service sector, which pay very little in terms of worker, because actually they do produce huge bill with very few work. They use technology, they use artificial intelligence. So labor cost on total for them is a relatively smaller portion of taxes, of cost, in comparison with the example of before, in comparison with the firms cleaning a building. So then, if you compare these two sectors, from one side you have a sector which is very high taxed. From another side, you have firms in the digital sector doing huge business, huge profit, huge revenue with little proportion in terms of cost. So in order to re-equilibrate the market, we need to increase tax in the service sector. It is a huge the amount of tax, the amount of income which is not taxed there, and everybody knows that. Now the point is, shall we tax in one country only? This cannot be taxed in one country only. So if we want to tax services like Amazon or Facebook or all these platforms producing service in only one country, this is really impossible in one single country. You need to do it at European level. You need to do it with a coordinated approach, because actually today this service company, they don't even have an headquarter in a country. They don't need to have an headquarter in a country to do business. They have an headquarter wherever in the world, and they do business where they are users, where they are consumers. You don't need a production factory like, in the previous system of economy, where you have manufacture, even with an headquarter in Netherlands, but production factory here in Belgium. No, in the service sector, the headquarter may be wherever, and the market is where the user is. So then, it's appropriate that the country of the user tax this company. Yes, it is appropriate.
Okay, well, I understand why you're saying that. One last question. One issue that is currently being discussed is the revision of the Tobacco Excise Directive, which is also linked to the debate on EU-owned resources. How can the EU update these rules to ensure stable revenues for member states on one side, while also protecting jobs and supply chain on the other side, especially in those countries like Italy, for example, where the sector still plays an important economic role?
Well, this is another issue which is as well very important. We know that tobacco, in all kinds, in all forms, tobacco is detrimental for the health. We know that, and unfortunately. Unfortunately for them, corporations and companies, they do know as well. They know as well that this business is somehow detrimental for the health. So Europe in the last year introduced some behavioral taxes, which are trying to reduce the consumption, because otherwise, I mean, you have you have an health issues. Where is the equilibrium point for that?
Yeah.
It is always very, it has to be paid attention where to put. But I think, honestly, that the last directive proposed by the Commission on the tobacco revision of taxes goes in the good direction, meaning that it is increasing a little bit the taxation for that, for all kind of business, for all kind of tobacco, no? Because today you have a new market emerging, and we think that there are some tobacco products which are less detrimental than others. Well, there are no evidence on that. We all know that all kind of tobacco products that today we use, they are detrimental. So it is fine, I think it is right to converge with taxation for this kind of products. Although they are apparently different, they have all the same detrimental impact.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
time and for sharing your thoughts with us here today. Thank you everyone for watching from home. Again, this is Sonia Romano from the Watch Report EU, and see you at the next episode of A View from Brussels.